We are still living with the consequences of the pandemic. Our annual meeting is on Zoom again, and our services and activities remain subject to hygiene measures. Last year's meeting was delayed until October, and my concluding reflection then was that the pandemic was pushing us to address challenges that had already begun to present themselves in our modern post-Christian secular world. The temptation for churches in such an environment is to become inward-looking, or worse, simply to refuse to face the truth that the world is changing. Quite apart from external changes, lives had already been changing for many of us who are regular and deeply committed members of the church. Many people find that demands on their time are more stretched, with flexible working practices and families living further apart. The traditional pattern of church life placed a lot of focus on the Sunday parish Eucharist, but on any given week this would only be attended by 25 to 33% of the church family, usually a different 25 to 33% on any given week, with a small number of regulars, which meant that the opportunity to meet, catch up, hear news and be able to pray in an informed way for each other was already becoming quite restricted. In the past year, and largely as a result of the pandemic, we have been led to find new ways of engaging and relating with each other. And whilst I'm sure there is still room for improvement, I think we've achieved a lot at St Francis that will serve us well into the future. The weekly email and Vicar's online message have established a regular line of communication, accessible to those who use the internet, but also distributed every week in paper copy to those who do not. I am very grateful to Meg Johnson, who has turned up in all weathers to deliver these, assisted on different occasions by Elaine Anderson and Joan Park, and other volunteers from time to time, when we've done a print run to every home in our parish family, such as for this report. During the times of lockdown and the partial opening, we have been worshipping in various ways, first with a paper order service reproduced online, but then since last June with a recorded online service premiered each Sunday. And over Christmas and since Palm Sunday this year, we are now broadcasting our Sunday service. I'm very grateful to Brian Smith for helping us work through the technological challenges, and there's still more work to be done in terms of making this better quality for sound and reliable image. But this is something which we can develop, and it means that people can participate and keep in touch with our worship, even if they're not able to be here in person, whether through infirmity, shielding, or being away from home. The daily morning and evening prayer on Facebook is now well established, and far more people tune into that than would ever have attended the daily office in person, and that's helping to deepen the spiritual texture of our life together. Yvette's experiments with Stillness at Noon and Compline during Lent showed that this format translates easily to other times of day and has been much appreciated. Having said that, nothing replaces the experience of live church, and we are looking forward to the opportunity to gather together in person. If all goes according to plan, the government roadmap means that all restrictions will be lifted on the 21st of June, and this times well with the date of Yvette's ordination to the priesthood on the 3rd of July. Her first time presiding at the Eucharist will be Sunday, 4th of July, and I hope that as many of us as possible will be able to be there. I can imagine we might still have hand sanitising and possibly face coverings, and perhaps we'll need to think carefully about catering. If the weather's fine, we might be able to have the social part of that event outdoors. But in any event, I invite you to put the date in the diary and to pray for her and for Marco and all their family at this time. Yvette's arrival as our curate has been a joy, and in spite of the lockdown, she has established herself as an ordained minister, and it's a privilege for us as a parish to be the place where she forms her ministerial character for the benefit of the wider church. In March, we also welcomed Katie Watson at that time Deputy Lead Chaplain for Newcastle NHS Hospitals Trust, who was ordained deacon by Bishop Christine as the pandemic took hold, and licensed to our parish. Katie has now become the lead chaplain, and whilst we've not been able to make much of her in the public ministry of our church, her engagement with the clergy team and occasional online sermons and meditations have provided us with an excellent perspective during a global health crisis. For a while, this meant that we had 3 curates for about 6 weeks, until, of course, we came to say farewell to Jonathan Cooper and to Sally, who had been with us for 3 years. John was instrumental in helping develop much of our online activity alongside his preaching, teaching and leading worship, supporting our choir and sharing fully in the pastoral ministry of the church. In spite of the lockdown, we had a lovely farewell picnic in August, and various sightings of him since then report that he is well and enjoying his new life as an accountant with a dog collar. We wish him well. Meanwhile, during the lockdown, we formed a good relationship with the local mutual aid group, and we're in the process of producing a community newsletter to be sent to every household in the NE7 area, to be called NE7 Highlight, with the express aim of encouraging all our local residents as we emerge from the pandemic, promoting good neighbourliness and highlighting voluntary groups working for the benefit of the community. The team responsible for places of welcome have remained active and helped ensure that as a church community we've not only kept in touch with each other, and especially those who live alone, but also welcomed new people into our sphere of care. More recently, the online tea and chat has been a new format for developing this, and I'm hopeful that this work will develop to improve the pastoral ministry of our church. Another aspect of this development has been the use of our buildings, and the completion of the gallery and baptistry, thanks to the generosity of an anonymous donor, have helped create 2 new meeting spaces for our church community, a new accessible toilet and the introduction of Wi-Fi. This increases the capacity of our church building for us to use more often, and I believe profoundly that the more a building is lived and worked in and prayed in, the more it becomes the home of something real. Meanwhile, a small working party has begun to think about how we might develop the hall as a community asset, which will also serve the needs of the church, not least income generation, and that will form part of the PCC agenda in the coming year. 2 years ago, I set as the target of reaching 100 people on our electoral roll, which was then 89. The lockdown has cramped our style in the past year, and we've lost some much-loved companions, among them recently George Render, Nora Tempest and John Brack. But our electoral roll has increased to 95, and alongside this our parish giving scheme, which is a good indicator of commitment to parish life, as John Telfer has recorded, has managed a modest increase in numbers and amounts pledged. We also had a gift day last October, which was a direct appeal to members of the church family to help our church navigate the financial storm of lost income caused by the pandemic. And as Doug's report has shown, the response was very heartening. In addition, we raised over £2,000 in a virtual Christian Aid Week collection, a harvest collection for the West End Food Bank, and I have passed over £1,000 in cash donations to the food bank as well. The toddler group is looking forward to a relaunch. Tea and Toast has begun to offer space to young people again, and a group has been studying the National Living in Love and Faith course, with a view to helping our church participate in the national debate on marriage, relationships, sexuality and gender, and also set a goal for St Francis Church to become an inclusive church. The Eco Group has been active throughout the lockdown, including beekeeping training and the establishment of our own colony, which arrived just before Easter, and is settling well. The sanctuary garden is developing, and we've set dates for a parish cycle ride and a walk after the 17th of May. And throughout it all, the responsible caring group has ensured that we've maintained safeguarding as well as health and safety. The Mothers' Union, choir and breakfast church have all been severely curtailed in the past year, but all have found ways of keeping in touch and sustaining their allegiance and activity, including, can I mention, a brilliant online nativity play at Christmas from our families. And we look forward to all those groups re-emerging like butterflies back into the sunshine. As we have gone through the annual report, we've had the opportunity to express our thanks, but I have my own particular thanks that I'd like to extend. First, to the church wardens, Elizabeth and Brian, whose patient and reliable support has been of immeasurable value. Steve Germain, as our health and safety assistant, has also been invaluable in the past year, in addition to the other things he's done for the Eco Group. I'm grateful to Richard and Gloria Bryant, who in their different ways have been able to take part in the ministerial life of the church, mostly online in the past year, and in spite of the limitations, I have appreciated their virtual presence and support. Richard has led a number of Zoom Bible studies to the great enjoyment and satisfaction of those who attended, and Gloria's led a Mothers' Union quiet evening online and has been recorded reading and praying for us. I want to thank Carol Fulkus as well. June has been our hall manager for many years, and Carol has seamlessly assumed many of the aspects of June's role without displacing her mum. The past year's not been easy, handling bookings, keeping relationships with users and ensuring hygiene, but again her enthusiastic engagement means that our hopes to develop the hall as a community resource are well founded. I mentioned earlier the loss of George Render. One of George's roles was as sacristan and head server. Recently, Alan Sidney Wilmot, who's making a slow but steady recovery, by the way, has handed on the task of ordering vestry supplies, and so I'm happy to announce that Derek Charlton is now taking on fully the role of sacristan and head server. Derek has taken on just about all the tasks of the role for some time already, and he does it with great care and faithfulness. So I'm pleased that he has allowed us to lay this mantle upon him, recognising his diligent service. I began by observing that the lockdown might drive churches into refusing to accept change or to become inward-looking. I hope that the substance of this report enables us to see that we have achieved a lot in spite of the lockdown and positioned ourselves well for future development. I believe that this is the fruit of our life of worship, community and service together, inspired by those Franciscan values of humility, love and joy. In Franciscan spirit, I trust that our actions will continue to speak louder than our words, but what will matter most are our prayers. May you have peace and all good.